What is this lost tradition called Gnosticism? This ancient art of inner knowing and blissful transcendence. Those mystical teachings of individuality that brought the wrath of the Church and other institutions across history. Is it possible to learn about the Gnostic secrets of primordial goddesses we can still call upon? Heed their warnings about alien beings keeping us in bondage in a terrible simulation? And feeding upon us. Can we discover today and use their timeless rituals that caused expanded consciousness and astral flights? That unleashes our inner light and divinity? And the original teachings of Jesus and Mary Magdalene that promised a world of dignity and freedom for all living beings? Yes, you can, and so much more. From the Gospel of Thomas to the Gospel of Mary. From the teachings of Simon Magus to the mystery of Abraxas to the revelations of Sophia, it's now available in one course. Enter the Virtual Alexandria Academy. Know the unknown and the reality beyond reality.
Heresy shouldn't be this much fun, but it is. It just is, especially when you arrive to Aeon Byte, to the Virtual Alexandria, to learn the greatest mystery of your entire life. Who are you? And that's what we do, and that's why you are here. The little intro I had, of course, is promoting my Virtual Alexandria Academy. In case you didn't know, it has been dropped only to $99 for the full course. As you saw, more than 30 hours of Gnostic education, modern and ancient, from Simon Magus to Philip K. Dick to Carl Jung. Plus, you get all Gnosis conference replays included at no extra cost. So check it out and check out another tool for your self-awakening. My name is Miguel Connor, and I am so happy to see you. Still recovering from my jaw issue and infection, but much better, and I can certainly speak much better too. I don't know if my kids and my wife are happy about that part, but they are happy that I am feeling better. So good to see everybody on this Friday. I hope everybody's doing well. So grateful that you are here. And I am very excited about today's show because I find it extremely fascinating. And certainly, like I said, another path of self-knowledge that we all need. And with us to discuss this path, it is a pleasure to be joined by Dr. Yafi Yair to discuss her new book, Conversations with Hathor. Yafi, thank you very much for your time and for coming on.
Hi, Miguel. I'm happy to be here. Thank you for having me.
Pleasure is all ours. And with us too, we've got the Moondog Vance. Vance, how are you doing today?
Oh, had a wonderful morning and happy to be here. I've got a little bit of experience with Hathor. I did a course with a guy named Tom Kenyon many moons ago, and he was into Hathor, and we had a little interesting time with that. So I'm interested in learning more and refreshing my memory about Hathor.
Indeed, indeed. Yes, I feel an overlooked goddess doesn't get the same press as, let's say, Isis or Sekhmet, but probably just as important, and as Yafi is teaching us, probably as essential today for the transformation of humanity. So that's why we are here. But
Absolutely.
of course, as soon as I say our name, I have a visitor. We have another co-host here. All right, on my lap, Bast. But yeah, good to see everybody in the chat. As always, if you have any questions, please super chat them so we can separate them. We will take a couple of phone calls later on if people can get away from their desks or their cubicles and ask about Hathor, and they won't cause an issue at your job. But the phone lines will be open. Not much else on the housekeeping. Next week, we got some good shows. We will have a show on Carl Jung, on a new way of looking at him. David Block will join us, and I'm finalizing the details for David Stanley to join us so we can discuss some of our favorite heretics, the Hathor. So lots going on, so please support in any way you can. Like, subscribe, and all that good stuff. Well, Yafi, let's start with your evolution and your spiritual, I always like to call it hitchhiking because often we don't know where we're going. But when did you, as they say, took the red pill? You began your life when you were a clinical psychologist, right?
That's right. Well, I obviously began my life as a child. First as a baby, then as a child.
Not like Venus just popped out of the shell somewhere.
Yes, all of a sudden I'm a doctor. Yes.
Yeah.
And my whole life, I've had both the scientific left brain strength and also the intuitive artistic gift. So I've been kind of going back and forth in harnessing and developing different sides depending on the time of my life. And as you can imagine, my studies in clinical psychology have been very, very left brain oriented. And not a coincidence, the universe arranged that my last year of my studies, right before I took off and opened my own practice and did my own thing, I had my most recent spiritual awakening. And it really just started with this inner spark to go back to the interest in anything spiritual, paranormal, mediumship. The material was huge for me. I discovered it and it totally blew my mind. And I also at the same time discovered hypnosis, which was my professional gateway of bringing spirituality into the work I was already doing for others. And at the same time, I discovered meditation and I started meditating daily. So there were all these different avenues but all roads lead to Rome, that took me more and more deeply into this spiritual journey that I see as a direct beginning to where I am today.
Mm-hmm. And so you see, I guess today, unless you are into, again, as we discuss in the show, Carl Jung, you can't reconcile clinical psychology, the left brain and the right brain, the spiritual mystical. It's just not going to happen,
right.
Is it?
Carl Jung was really the only one that included intuition into his theory of psychology and the human psyche. So yes, he was definitely rare and unusual and really ahead of his time in that way.
And why do you think so? Because, I mean, what happened? Because even somebody like Sigmund Freud believed in telepathy, even though he was a materialist. I mean, the mind is the mind. And even if you look at the research, like you talk about doing past life research and other telepathy, I mean, if you look at the data like a scientist, it tells you that the human mind is more than it seems, right?
Well, it really depends who you ask, right? There are many scientists that would tell you adamantly that their research and scientific studies do not support this claim. So it really depends who you ask. It's kind of a self confirmation bias, right? So whatever perspective you're coming from, whatever is your starting belief, you tend to reinforce that rather than really discover new approaches unless you're truly, truly open to them. And that's what happened with Carl Jung. He was highly intuitive. He experienced amazing synchronicities and one in particular that really convinced him of the reality of that world. But I don't know if we should leave that to your next guest, who is specifically going to speak about Carl Jung.
No, I completely understand. It's what Mark Twain said. There's lies, damn lies, and statistics. We can use statistics to support whatever our egoic bias is, right? Or
Exactly.
our worldview. So it's unfortunate because I think the data says otherwise. And when was as you began to again embrace things like meditation and other esoteric disciplines, when did Hathor for the audience come into your life?
Yeah, so this awakening that I'm describing happened in 2011-12. So we're talking about 14 years ago now. And Hathor entered into my life, at least consciously, that I was aware of, 5 years ago. That's when I started taking channeling more seriously. Until then, I didn't poo-poo it because I was already into the set material. But when I tried it, when I channeled, I felt like it wasn't verifiable enough. It wasn't scientific enough. I wasn't really okay with it until approximately 5 years ago, when I really delved into the channeling world and took it on completely. And immediately Hathor entered my life. She was one of the first sources that I've channeled, and the one that stayed most consistent and long lasting, to where we are today, where I really primarily channel Hathor. And with my group, I channel every Sunday for my Zoom group. So for my group, unless there are some exceptions, it's really Hathor that comes through, with some Isis during the light language.
Mm-hmm. Yes, your book has all, again, you lay it all out, and it is fascinating. The interactions, so how did you know it was Hathor? Because I've been picked by goddesses, the most recent ones, Artemis and Santa Muerte, and again, the synchronicity, the voice, it was obvious who it was. How did you know that this was this aspect of the divine feminine?
Yeah, that's a great question, because I was not familiar with Hathor when I started channeling her/them. But the way she first came to me is that our channeling teacher, Lisa Royal Holt, to the ones who are familiar with the name, she's amazing. She gave us a cards with the energies, entities that are ready to work with us as new channelers, or a whole group of new channelers. And out of the card, I shuffled and I took out a card, and that's the name that came up. So that's why and how I had a name before I even knew what I was channeling. And to me, because I was not familiar with the name, Hathor sounded like a very masculine, very warrior-like, maybe because of the name Thor, but it just sounded to me, I expected some lightning bolt sending masculine god. And then when I connected to the energy and began channeling them, I felt this softness and this loving nurturance. And it was just such a beautiful, loving essence, so enjoyable to connect to. And I just fell in love immediately. And it just felt so good to bring that energy through. And of course, over time, I learned how substantial the messages were, that it has a lot of depth and a lot of knowledge and a lot of breadth, meaning it's so broad who and what Hathor or the Hathors are. So whether you think about it as the divine feminine, it's so broad. Or whether you think about it as a Sirian collective from the star system Sirius, or whether you think of her as an Egyptian goddess, and it's not just one being, but that's how we know the name Hathor. So that's why I often relate to her as her and she, but when they speak, it's always plural.
Always plural. Interesting. And did you have to go back and start studying some of the myths and sort of get acquainted with the Egyptian Hathor, or?
To a degree, but it took me, to be honest, several years. I wanted to keep myself as pristine as possible and not to be impacted by outside material, especially as a new channeler. When you're new at this, there's a lot of questions of trust and how do I know I'm really getting it versus it's something that I read, for example. So I kind of like the idea that I was not well versed in mythology and or even in channeled material. So I knew that whatever came up from within me and not from the outside. Now it's not as much of an issue. And I have gone back and read some stuff about Hathor and Egyptian mythology, but once again, not channeled material. I still, for the most part, stay away from channeled material. But I did go to Egypt a couple of years ago, and I visited the Hathor temple, and also our guide was this amazing doctor of Egyptologists and hieroglyphics. So his knowledge was just incredible. And he taught us about the different gods and goddesses. And he explained to me that Hathor is known as the mother of all the gods because she nursed, the story goes that she nursed of her milk. And that's why she's often depicted with association with a cow, because she is the mother of all. She's the one nursing everyone, which kind of blew my mind at the time because it fit so beautifully with my experience of Hathor as the divine feminine and not just a single goddess. So it really made sense for me and really resonated with me as I learned that. And since then, I've done more reading and learned more about Hathor.
Yeah, what an experience. Yeah, you're at the Temple of Dendera. That must have been just something else. I'm so jealous of you.
Oh, come over. I'm taking another group in next January. Come join us.
All right. Oh, yeah, amazing. And how the other questions I had maybe for the audience to understand. Oh, first I say for those of you, I think in the public perception, I think the most famous depiction or infamous depiction of Hathor is probably what the Ten Commandments movie. You know, the old
I
Charles.
haven't seen that.
Well, they
Hathor
say
is
the
in that movie?
well, the golden calf. Some have surmised it was the Hebrews that decided to bring back the worship of Hathor.
Ooh,
So
how
of course,
interesting.
so of course Yahweh and Moses were going to have none of that. They were like, no
way.
we left that place. But of course they'd be like, we're lost in the desert, we need our mother.
How interesting. Yeah, I weren't ready for that yet.
Yeah, the cow is the animal associated with Hathor, the goddess Hathor.
For sure, obviously she's depicted as a human and all that. With the Egyptians, it's always this very symbolic switch and play. And for the audience who might not know, what exactly do you mean? What is a channeler, and what's the difference when you were called to channel? What's the difference with, let's say, a channeler and a psychic or a mystic or a shaman?
Yeah, so there's obviously an overlap. There's always an overlap. But generally speaking, I can say that I've been developing my psychic abilities actively since that period that I mentioned. So that's about 14 years. And channeling, the difference between regular psychic readings and channeling is when I do psychic readings, I'm with my eyes open. I may close my eyes to go inward, but generally speaking, you're speaking to Yafi. And Yafi is the one that's getting impressions from the other side, from my own higher self, from your higher self. I'm tapping into your field. And all the impressions are screened through the many filters that are Yafi. But Yafi is also a part of it's not only a limiting factor because you have my sense of humor, you have my personal understanding of things and ability to relate to you. So it's really a conversation with me and my connection to spirit and the beyond. Right. When I channel, I close my eyes and I really go inward. The best way to describe it is that right now, Yafi is driving the car, is in the front seat. And when I channel, I really take the back seat and I am more of a bridge of holding the space and allowance, while the sources that channel through me take the front seat. So I am not possessed. I am not losing control. In fact, it takes quite a lot of focus to hold that state. So in some ways, I'm very active, but in a different role than the one in the front seat. And I allow them to lead the conversation. And in that way, there's at least one filter removed. Now, there's still some filters. They're using my body, my voice, my brain, my vocabulary. So it's not true that there are no filters, but there is some kind of a more direct connection and less of a filter, less of me in the conversation and much more of them.
No, that makes sense. So it would be a little bit different than, let's say, an article I wrote recently on well, it was music, but it's about being possessed, or the artist is possessed by the muse, or Plato talked about the divine in the divine madness when either Dionysus or the muses or Aphrodite enters a human. I think it's called enthusi in Greek, and takes over. And he thought that's the best way to be, because you allow the god to set the agenda. And is it something similar to that, or are there
Yes.
some
So a
differences?
couple of things that you said brought up a couple of points. So one, you mentioned Aphrodite, which is really interesting, because one of the first things that Hathor said, we were asking our questions, my group was asking our questions. And one of the things that she said, by the way, that names are really mostly for us, the humans. And they're just to put things in neat boxes. And as an example, they said that different cultures and different eras gave them different names. And some of the names they mentioned were Aphrodite and Venus. So those names are supposedly talking about the same essence, just in different contexts relating to that specific culture. So you may actually be talking about the exact same process. Now, I like the idea of being inspired by the muses. However, the only issue I would have with that description, that it sounds a little bit like madness
Yeah,
or
that
like
is.
possession. But
Yeah.
I found that in order to channel, I actually have to be very, very grounded, not only as a person in general, but physically in my body. So one time I was in front of an aura camera, and it took a 2-minute video of my aura.
Right.
And what I did is a little experiment. I put myself in that channeled state, and then I took myself out of it without actually channeling words, just to see if it comes to show in the camera. And I was amazed with not only how immediate the change was, immediate. I'm very quick when I channel. I close my eyes and I know how to put myself in that state within just a few seconds. And indeed, 10 seconds after the session started, sharp changes happened. And this was the order of the changes. The first thing that happened, my root chakra expanded. Second thing that happened, my third eye, trying to remember, I think that's what happened. My third eye and my throat expanded.
Wow.
But the first thing that happened was my root chakra, which I really did not expect at all. But that just came to show me and show us how much grounding, actual grounding, is involved in the channeling process and is important for the channeling process.
No, that makes sense. And when you, for example, this, I did not plan this, but I guess we have a co-host here. When
An
you,
adorable one.
yeah, his name is Thunder, although I'm calling him Crackle now, but he's decided that it's playtime. But when you, for example, most know that I put out this book on Elvis, and I felt I was either possessed or channeled, or I like to call it quantum entangled. It's like we become him, I become him. We're still separate, but we're feeling each other. We're in the same place in infinity and so forth. And this book just came out of me, and I did feel channeled, but it was also draining. It really has taken a lot out of my life in many ways. Did that happen to you, or is it because I don't have experience channeling that I just allowed it to just take its pound of flesh?
So I like your quantumly entangled, because when I teach channeling and the way I understand channeling and feel channeling, that it's emerging. So your consciousness, your energy is merging with something else. And that's how it happens. So it makes sense that you experience it as an entanglement. And in terms of how it feels for the body, whether it's draining or energizing or anywhere in between, really depends on how much your body is prepared for that transmission, for that merging, how grounded you are, how well you are, what's your preserves of energy. And the more you are prepared, the more you are in coherence with what you're channeling, the more energizing it is rather than exhausting or draining.
I wasn't prepared. Obviously, I was not prepared or even saw it coming. I guess that happens. Sometimes you get picked and here they come. And what is for the audience too, the purpose of channeling? Somebody say, well, why do you channel? You already know that there is a spirit world. All those questions I've answered. You probably know about your past life. What is it? Why keep channeling?
Yeah, so we didn't really, and when I say we, I'm talking about my group that I'm meeting with and I channel. They're the ones asking the questions. We don't really ask a lot of questions like past lives, although these have been asked in individual sessions, but it's not really why we do it. We do it to continually expand our own understanding, our own consciousness. So understanding is one way. We ask questions in English, we get answers in English. So our understanding, our logical mind keeps on expanding, and they do keep on stretching us and kind of walking the boundaries of what we already know and what we already understand, and keep on stretching it to include a little more. But it's also energetic expansion. So the more I do this, the more I integrate, right? The more I merge with that essence, the more my energy expands, the more I walk the walk and not only talk the talk. So I've been integrating that essence of the divine feminine, that essence of deeper trust and being able to go with the flow and be in creativity and embrace being rather than doing, and all that has to do with the divine feminine. So I've been integrating it more and more into my life, and that all has been a part of that process of channeling.
And do you feel that's perhaps an important issue why Hathor has appeared? Because obviously, I don't think it's any secret that the divine feminine has, we're kind of unbalanced for the last few thousand years, and perhaps the divine, we need more of, Jung would say, the anima archetype, the divine balance. We need more of those lunar energies to help the psyche of mankind.
Absolutely. And that is something that they talk about quite a lot, about the rise of the feminine in today's Earth civilizations. We've allowed the masculine to run amok and go out of balance, definitely lacking the feminine aspect. And that is changing. We see more and more women in positions of authority. We see more and more men embracing their more creative, fluid side and not needing to always be stern, allowing themselves to be vulnerable. And that is all a part of the rise of the divine feminine. So it's not about making men more feminine. It's about having both the masculinity and the femininity more balanced, first within itself and then together to create a more complete whole.
Well said, and I would agree it's necessary. Well, let me bring you in, Vance, and while you have a question for Yafi, I got to let the cat out, driving me crazy, and the dog.
Oh, yeah.
I'll be right
couple
back.
of
Take
things.
over.
Okay. Yeah, I am no stranger to quote unquote channeling. And as a Gnostic, as one of the things I call myself, I see a direct connection between Gnosis and channeling. Because like in the Gnostic traditions, Gnosis is that knowledge that comes to you directly from the source. and not from your own personal experience or just mundane knowledge. And it can come in a flash. Oh wow, I suddenly have an gnosis about this experience or this situation. But if there's a longer type of delivering of the information, then it can come in the form of channeling. And like my original mystical experience did come in the form of channeling. I was there sitting in the back seat, like you said, listening to my own voice talk about things. And that's channeling, and it happens. I don't do it often anymore, but it can happen. And there's a certain feeling you get, and so forth. So, and the question is, I'm going to, there's a gentleman on the chat, which is bringing up a very interesting and common objection was, how do we know they're not demons? My own answer is that you know them by their fruits. You know them by the benefits. If you get to know it, you don't give yourself over to it entirely. It says, "Oh, I'm getting it, channeling it, tells me to jump off the cliff." Well, you're not going to do that, right? But what's your take on that? About it's really demons that are possessing us.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that is why our intention is so significant, and also where we're coming from and where we're at. So, as I mentioned earlier, so being prepared, being grounded is a big part of it. And also, when I channel, I start with an invocation, or at least I used to for the first several years. And in my invocation, I start by aligning myself with realms of love and light. And I put myself in this open, loving space. I declare my intention that these are the only realms I have any interest in working with. And then I call the source that I would like to connect to. And when I put myself in that state of high vibration is one terminology, but these are all different words to describe the same thing. When I put myself in this openness, in this really loving vibration, and gratitude is another wonderful way of getting there, I am literally shielded from anything with a different vibration from making connection. So it's like when you're dialing a number, you know where you're calling. You're not just picking up the phone and saying, anybody that would like to talk to me now. You have a specific intention, a direction that you're exactly. Imagine who would know what would talk to you if you did that? But no, we have a much more specific intention and direction. We're directing our energy. We're directing where we want to go. And that what corresponds to what comes through.
So know who you're talking to, right?
Mm-hmm. And know yourself.
That's good advice.
So if you have a lot of fears, right? If you're a person with a lot of fears, and if you're interested in channeling or developing your psychic abilities, but you have a lot of fears, what if I connect to demons? What if this? What if that? And some level of, I don't know if to call it fear, hesitance, or unknowing is okay. Like it's different to ask, how do I know it's coming from me or from a higher source? That's a very typical question. But how do I know I'm not talking to demons? It has a little bit of a different feel, indicates that maybe you shouldn't channel quite yet. Maybe you should do some more inner work, some more research, some more development, some more grounding. So that specific fear does not enter the picture when you're making that connection.
Yeah, that's a complex thing, doing, even knowing what grounding is. I'm kind of a naturally grounded person. One other thing, maybe you can comment on, I had what we call spirit guide. I was a little more new age type of guy rather than a Gnostic type of guy back in my younger days. But I used to have a guide that I'd talk to, and he, I'd be driving in the car and I'd ask a question, and I'd actually keep talking in Alcyon's voice. And one day I was having a certain conversation, and Alcyon said, I am just you on a higher level. You and I are one. And after that, really, I was able to just get the same information without talking it out to myself.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Hathor gave me the same message. Yes.
Ah. So for those that are afraid, of what's ever speaking through you, that's also something to understand is, once you get to a certain point in your journey, you're really one with the entity anyway. And it's the separation, of course, is, an illusion anyway.
Exactly. But yes, we usually wouldn't make connections, especially long-lasting connection. Now we're talking about our guides, a higher self, unless we have already a relationship with that entity. So that is why when Miguel asked me, when did you first meet Hathor? When did you first enter your life? This is from my small Yafi perspective. So from my perspective, we started our relationship 5 years ago. From her perspective, because their perspective is not limited to our space-time, to our current density and dimension. They have a much bigger picture view of everything. From their perspective, we've been in contact maybe forever. I don't know, but definitely way before this 5 years, way before this lifetime, because they have a much broader picture. So depending on how much we can see, how much we can feel, and it's enough to even know that we are multi-dimensional beings. This is one dimension that we are inhabiting, but it's not the only one we exist in. So in higher dimensions, there's obviously much more connection, much less separation in terms of who's connected to whom and why.
Well, thank you. I think that's very informative. I'm glad. Hope the people out in the chat understand.
And so somebody who channels, you're channeling these higher vibrational entity intelligences. This would be different than a medium. You don't channel dead people or ancestors or anything like that. I'm just trying to figure out the differences.
Yeah, so I don't channel dead people.
Just taking your words. Kind of crude, sorry.
But
I see dead people. No.
Exactly. But when I do readings, they do come through for other people. So although I do not sell myself as a medium, I don't see that as my niche. However, when I do readings, as I said, they do sometimes come through. But I think there's also a difference between, and I don't know if it's something that we want to get into, between ghosts or dead people and spirits who have crossed over and can come back and communicate, but they're on some level at peace, they have transitioned. And those come through more easily, although I do have ability to connect to a variety of sources. And I have had an interaction with men that I actually did not know, but I was requested to see if I could make a contact and help him transition to the other side. He committed suicide, and another child medium, he was exploring his abilities, was told that he was in a bad place and that he was unhappy. And one, either meditation, no, it was morning when I just woke up, so I was in that state. I'm like, let me try to make that connection. And I made the connection just by my intention. And as soon as I felt the connection was made, I told him, everything is okay, really. I can help you connect to your mother, who is here on the other side. Would you come with me? And I ushered him up. I followed the Monroe Institute system of taking him up to meeting guides. And in this case, I felt it would be good to reunite him with his mother. And I did so, and then the connection went away. So then I went back to my friend with the child medium, and I told him, well, I made a connection. Why don't you have your child connect to him again and see what happens? And the child connected, and to his amazement, that same person came through, that man that committed suicide, and he said, I'm so happy, everything is so good. He's like, oh, what a difference, you're so happy. What happened? And he said, that woman came and took me up. And now everything is great. So It was such a beautiful validation, also for myself and for him. And that's really the end of the story. So so it's possible. We can connect to a variety of different individuals, different energies, different frequencies, even ones that are in a lower vibration and have not transitioned yet. And I had no negative impact. It didn't even feel different for me because I was still me. We can use the word grounded again, but I was secure in my own identity, and I knew I was just being a helper. And that's exactly what I did. In that case, I was a helper. And it was really sweet. That man that I helped thought I was an angel.
Oh, wow.
Because we all have our own understanding and our own paradigm. So in his paradigm, this woman with long hair, long flowy hair, came and helped me up. So I was an angel, which is beautiful. Thank you.
In this scenario, cosmic scenario, it's your turn to be an angel.
Yes, briefly. I was briefly angelic, and then I came back to being human.
Well, even in camera, it seems you have two wings. You keep
Oh,
talking
that's
about, like,
right. That's right. Yeah.
butterfly angel. And when you do these readings, okay, obviously I read some of the cases. You have these Zoom readings with a group, and what is the purpose? Each person has their own destiny or goal or path to go, and you're sort of the hub to this, or you're just all working with Hathor for the audience so they can understand your process and
Yes.
exercises.
It's kind of both. So, first of all, nowadays, when we open the group, when we open the channeling, the transmission, Hathor and Isis usually provide some form of light language, which is really, they don't call it light language, but humans today do. Some kind of a transmission that's not in English. It's often different sounds. Some of them are beautiful, and some of them sound like I'm speaking gibberish, but they bring through different sounds. And those help to work with us energetically, everybody in the group. So it kind of aligns them, harmonizes them, expands their field, and have us all resonate in coherence. And once that happens, they begin with a verbal message, and they give some kind of a general message, maybe addressing something that's really very relevant today, or whatever they feel is the right thing to bring up. And then people ask questions. And as you can imagine, at the beginning of the inception of the group several years ago, and I'm sure you read about it in the book because it chronicles my channeling journey. So at first, there were a lot of personal questions, a lot of questions about trust. How do I know if I'm connecting, not me as Yafi, but the person asking the question? How do I know if I'm connecting or if I'm just making it up? How do I know who is my guide? And all kind of personal questions. And then there were different types of personal questions. I feel I have a blockage in my throat. How do I open the blockage in my throat? Or I feel like I had lifetimes in Egypt. How do I remember them? Or how are they relevant today? And after that stage, which could be months long, people stopped asking personal questions. I think at some point you kind of run out of things to ask that are very personal. And the questions became more and more general and more about the nature of our reality, the nature of this shift and changes we're going through as humanity, the nature of different collectives and how they interact with humanity. So the questions got deeper and more broad. And that is often different themes that we build on. They talk about current and future technologies, light and sound technologies are going to become more and more mainstream for humanity. So the questions today tend to be more general, more broad, but general in terms of less personal, not less specific. Although occasionally a personal question would still come up, and the guides always have incredible insights to share with us.
Yeah, indeed, for sure. And it seems Hathor and the entities have a good positive view of where we're heading, right? It seems it's a good shift.
Very positive. They're all very excited. I think they're extra excited. They don't have to experience it in the physical, but they're all very excited for us. They've been saying for years that the shift is coming. They're saying that now the shift is here. It's no longer a future prediction or story. It's something that is happening right now. They say this is very exciting times. They warned us, again, even years ago, that as a part of this shift, as a part of this transition, everything has to come up to the surface. Any dirt, any wounds, anything, any broken systems can no longer stay hidden. So everything is going to float up, everything is going to be apparent. And as a result, it's going to seem to many like there's so much more negativity out there. But it's not that negativity is growing, it's that our awareness of it is expanding and growing. So we have to be able to see everything, to deal with everything. There's no more running away, there's no more avoiding. And that is a lot of what we're experiencing now and what people are noticing around them.
So basically, going back to Jung, we all have to face our shadow collectively and individually. It's time.
Absolutely. And what we're experiencing individually so everything is a fractal. And for people that don't know what is a fractal, the same shape in small, the same pattern is the same as much as you zoom in or zoom out. So a tree is a perfect example. You have the general shape of the tree with the trunk, and then you have the branches, which is the same shape, and then you have the small branches, which are the same shape. So that's the idea of a fractal. So that's also true in terms of energetically and in terms of consciousness. So what you notice yourself as each individual experiencing personally, the same bigger patterns are happening for groups, and even bigger patterns are happening to humanity. So if you notice yourself having to deal with rejection or with any insecurities that come up, these are all wounds or shadows. Shadow work is people know that term, that you have to do personally, but also reflect the larger picture transformations and changes that humanity is going through as a whole.
Well said indeed, and I would agree. Vance, you can open the phone lines if you want. We'll take a few calls before we hit the top of the hour.
Let's do that.
So if you guys have any questions for Yafi. But I guess my next question would be also the $1 million question, as they say. The idea of, which is very popular, and suddenly the government is all for it, the idea of extraterrestrials. How does your work deal with extraterrestrials and Hathor and all that? One and the same. Who are they? Who are they?
Yeah, so on some level, you can say that they are also extraterrestrials from the common definition of humans. And they said through me when I channeled that in times of ancient Egypt, they really did walk the earth as physical beings. It's not just a story, it's not just mythology. And as of approximately 2 years ago, they are on the earth in the physical once again. So notice I've been channeling them for more than 2 years, and there are other channelers that have channeled the Hathors. So it's not that they were absent. Their consciousness is still a part of humanity and interacting with us. However, as physical beings, they are on the earth once again. So if we were to come face to face with them, we would consider them extraterrestrials, beings from beyond the earth, and it's of the earth and beyond, which is a part of the adjustment that we need to make as humans. When we think about extraterrestrials, we only think of, depends again who is in the conversation, but often people think of physical beings, got on a ship from a different planet, flew over to our earth, landing here, and voila, they are aliens, they're extraterrestrials. And that is only one aspect of what extraterrestrials are. And a part of our growing understanding is that they have been here all along. Many of them preceded humans in connection with the planet. And we are, again, growing our awareness of them and of our relationships with them. And that is one form of contact. So first contact is not going to be with beings that are here for the first time, but beings that have interacted with Earth for very, very long. But the first contact is for us, this version of humanity as we know it today.
Makes sense. Makes sense. No calls, Vance. I think I see a super chat here.
No calls, but we do have one. Yeah, Todd Klatt has something for us. He's reading that Hathor also takes the form as Sekhmet, the lioness who nearly destroyed humanity. Is Hathor related to Sekhmet, or are they separate? How would the near destruction fit into the story?
Yes, this is a great question. And the answer is not coming from Hathor, means I've never channeled and been asked about it. This is just from my understanding. So I have learned to see Sekhmet as the shadow side of Hathor. And we're talking how everything has two sides. And I'll even take it a step back. So in my first book, Conversations with the Earth, I started by channeling fire consciousness. And fire consciousness, one of its main teachings for humanity was how destruction and creation are really two sides of the same coin, that creation cannot happen without destruction. It's a part of that cycle. So taking that teaching and applying it to this question, you can see as Sekhmet as the destruction side, the shadow side of the light of the creation, which is Hathor. And how did it almost destruct humanity? You can see it as our shadow side that never destroys us, right? We all have a shadow side, and hopefully, at least most of us, do not let it take over us, but just most of us, but realize it's a part of who we are, a part for us to learn how to deal with, how to view, how to cope with, how to accept. And that is a part of our journey into embodying our light even more so. So that is how I see and understand Sekhmet in relations to Hathor.
That's interesting, because in the Gnostic world, we have, hang on just a second.
I think Vance froze. Did you freeze, Vance? No, you went on mute.
No, but yes.
Yeah.
Okay. We can't hear you.
No, you're still on mute, Vance.
Yeah, I got a phone call. Graham is calling, so we'll deal with him in a second. Now, what was I saying? Oh, yeah, in the Gnostic world, we have the demiurge, who's often depicted as having a lion head. So I wonder, since the Gnostics are connected with the Egyptians, and the demiurge is connected with kind of a destructive type of force, although he originally created, according to Gnostic lore, created the material universe, I wonder if there's a connection there between the Gnostic demiurge with the lion head and Sekhmet the lion.
It sounds like there's definitely a connection. Yes.
Yeah. What do you think, Miguel?
I would say no. I think Sekhmet is more like Sophia and Isis, or Ashira and Anat, because in the Hebrew you got Ashira, the great mother, and that is a destructive part. Same as Sekhmet and Hathor. The Gnostics already had having Sophia. There's the dark side of Sophia and the caring Sophia, but because I think the demiurge is more connected to this god called Chernubis. He's kind of a obscure Egyptian god, but he's got the body of a lizard and the head of a lion, and he ruled the 13th Deccan. And the Egyptians, he was honored, but they tried to stay away from him. So that could be the original. And Seth too. Some say that Seth is simply another iteration of the demiurge. So it's fun mythology.
All right. Well, Graham is waiting to talk to us, so let us come on there. Graham, you're on the air.
Thank you. My first question is, if you found it consistent that with my experience, that women are more natural channelers, and most of the channelers that I've encountered, they tend to be predominantly women.
Is that the question?
Yeah.
If most channels
that's the first question.
If the most channelers are predominantly men?
Women.
Oh, women.
No, women.
Women.
Yeah, I found that women tend to be, yeah.
Yeah, I would say that yes, that maybe the human body in general, the feminine body, is more structured to connect to intuition. But you notice you're saying more channelers. It's not that there are no channelers that are men. But in certain tradition, for example, in South American traditions, it is known that most channelers and psychics are either women or gay men. So again, it's interesting. You have that feminine aspect. But remember that I mentioned in the beginning that in order to embrace a divine feminine, it's not really just for women. It really is for everyone. It's to come into balance with your own femininity. And I think as we continue to do that as individuals and as a society, it will probably balance out more and more. And there will be more and more men that are just as psychic or as many of them channelers as there are women.
Interesting. No, I was going to say the feminine and the female is much more receptive and open to other entities and other bodies. Again, the bearing the pregnancy is, you know, a biological aspect of that one. The other question I had is related to Hathor. And I was curious, as you were just talking about, in a lot of Egyptian mythology, Sekhmet is kind of the other side of the coin of Hathor, sort of the love and war. I was curious if you ever encountered in your channelings any of the darker side, the more Sekhmet side of Hathor. Okay.
Yeah, I have never experienced any darker side in channeling, but remember that when I make my intention to connect, I intentionally only direct it towards the loving, open, light side of things. And I think as a practitioner, it is your choice. But honestly, I don't understand why anyone would be more curious about the dark side, or would we want to envelop themselves with the dark side, would want to merge themselves with the dark side. And it's even true about paganism. I never related to the people that really want to go deeper into the dark side. Now, that being said, we all have to do our shadow work. So we cannot avoid all darkness. We cannot avoid the sides of ourselves that are not all love and light and fluffy and beautiful and rainbows and unicorns. However, it doesn't mean that that's where I choose to direct my energy and that's where I choose to explore. So in my experience, I've only dealt with the loving and beautiful when it comes to channeling.
Good. No, I agree with that one. I just know sometimes, even though your intent is on the light one, a lot of the very powerful beings like Hathor or some of these that have multiple sides, sometimes they can, you know, they can feel like it's time to show a slightly different side, even though that wasn't your intent. That's what they feel needs to happen, and they're kind of in charge at times. So you haven't had that happen to you. So I'm glad that happened. Thank you.
And honestly, yeah, thank you for your questions. And I feel that if anything dark ever tried to come through, I think as Yafi, I would be so uncomfortable with it that I would end the connection immediately.
Hang up that phone.
Yes, you know, they're using my body, my mind, my energy. I have no interest in mingling with any of the lower frequencies. It's not what I want for myself. So I don't think I would be comfortable with it. And I think I would add the connection immediately. But as I said, that never had to happen. Mm-hmm. Not in readings and not in channeling.
It's good that you have the conscious control to stop the connection, because I'm sure there are a lot of channelers out there that don't have that control, that run into problems because they can't turn it off.
And I think if that's the case, again, maybe they should do some more inner work and some more clearing before they take this on. I think especially nowadays, channeling is more and more conscious, intentionally, because we're calling to be more and more integrated individuals.
And would you say that, going back to the idea, the question about male, more female channel and so forth, if somebody says, is everybody a natural channel, or do you have to have a gift? What's your answer to that?
It's kind of both. Let's take any other gift, any other talent. And the easiest example is musical ability. Can anyone play a basic tune on the piano? Yes, if you practice, you can do it. Is everyone a Mozart? No, they're not. So there are different levels of skill and different levels of natural abilities, but you also have the ability to work on your gifts and develop them even more. And I feel any psychic abilities, spiritual abilities, which channeling is just one of them, would be the same. So almost everyone would have the ability to become a channel, especially if they practice and put themselves into it. But to some, it will come more naturally. And to others, to some others, it may take more work, more practice, more effort.
No, makes sense. Makes perfect sense. Well, awesome. As we get towards the end of the interview, any last questions or remarks from you, Vance?
Not really. Hang on a second. Goodbye, Graham. Thank you for calling.
Oh, yeah, thanks, Graham, and thanks for the super chat, Todd.
Yeah, sorry about that. My system here was unmuting my mic when I was changing status for Graham. No, I had my say. I think it was very interesting in terms of contacting Hathor and so forth. I think I've got my own experiences too, so I can relate. So thank you for all the information. It's great.
It's my
And you
pleasure.
have your other book, Conversations with Earth. What tell the audience about that one?
Yeah, so that was my first book. And
Right.
as a new channeler, I was really encouraged to explore different sources, different sources to channel. And as I described at the beginning, we had cards of different energies to work with.
Right.
And so I had a wide variety of entities. So fire consciousness, water and wind consciousness. So there was a lot of elements at first and energies connected with the earth. And then it got more and more galactic. The moon, Andromeda, the hybrid children, the Zetas, the Arcturians, the Pleiadians, anyone that you can imagine. Anyone that me and my group were curious about, I opened a channel to and called them through. And of course, my group then interviewed them and asked all the questions we could think about. And that's all documented in my first book, Conversations with the Earth. All the books are available on my website or Amazon, also in audiobook, which I narrate. So it's the closest as hearing the channeling.
Right.
And so that's the first book. And it's really a wild ride, and it's quite interesting to get all these different perspectives about humanity and what is happening in our world right now.
Yeah, for sure. And I have your website on the show notes. Anything else you want to share with the audience? You talk about the trip to Egypt in January. Anything else, or tell us more about that?
Yeah, so the trip this is the first time of me taking a small group. We're going to be a very small, intimate group. We're going to not only visit different temples, we're also going to make an emphasis on visiting the ones that are available in the evening with a light and sound show. We're also going to have our own private boat to cruise the Nile.
Oh, wow.
So we're going to have a lot of privacy and opportunities to connect, group meditations, etc. And of course, we'll visit the Hathor temple, among others. We're going to do a hot air balloon ride over sacred land in sunrise, and the pyramids, the Sphinx, and everything that you can imagine. It's going to be a small group. It's going to be amazing. I'm really looking forward to it. That's coming in January. Yes, you guys are invited.
But you'll do rituals too, channeling while you're there?
Yes. Okay. That's why we got the private boat. So we have the freedom to really do as a group all those wonderful, deeper spiritual explorations and experiences. And the other thing that I would mention, that I teach channeling, and I mainly teach it in form of light language, which means you learn how to be in a state of clarity, how to jump on that flow, how to maintain that state, and then how to express it with your voice, with or without words. And that's a beautiful module. I love this class. I offer it. It has 5 sessions, live sessions, 2 hours each. And we build up your energy. We did different journeys together. And of course, the practice. So it's a really, really wonderful class if you guys are interested in learning how to become a channel or to connect your intuition in that way. I definitely recommend it.
Wonderful. We'll check it out again on the show notes, whether you're watching the replay on YouTube or any podcast. Check it out. Definitely check out her book. And this is fascinating work, and you won't be disappointed. But we are at the end of our session. So first, I will say, Vance, thanks for keeping us company.
Oh, it's great. It was great to hear about Hathor, and that sounds like a great trip. So good luck with that. You know, whether I wind up being with you guys or not, good luck with it.
Thank you.
Indeed. Well, Yafi, thank you very much for coming on the show. Really appreciate your time and the work you're doing to literally spread more light into the world.
Thank you. Thank you so much. You as well.
Pleasure's all ours. And for everybody else, great to see you. Please support this show. Really appreciate your company. And again, we have some great shows next week. I hope everybody has a good beginning of your weekend. And as I like to say, write your own gospel, live your own myth, and add a little Clark Emery, who said the awakening of any individual is a cosmic event. So be that cosmic event. Take care, everybody.